Today in the show, we're going to be talking about some of the comics I got at the comic shop this week. Okay guys, I'm not gonna lie to you, I am in a little bit of a hurry today because I'm in the middle of working on a bigger video which you can expect sometime in October, but because of that we only have time to go over 2 comics this week. I know you guys want my opinion on the Future's End titles. Specifically, I know a lot of you want my opinion on Future's End Grayson. So all the Future's End titles are set 5 years in the future, and in the Grayson title, we only knew that Dick Grayson for some reason had gone over to the side of the Russians. I really want to like Grayson. I want it to be the best comic book series that I have ever read. I want it to surprise me, and I want it to make me eat my words. Now, I love Dick Grayson as a comic book character. He's not necessarily the character that I mentally associate with Robin. I kind of associate Tim Drake with Robin more than Dick Grayson. But Dick Grayson as a character is such a great person. But the Dick Grayson in Grayson isn't Dick Grayson. He doesn't act like Dick Grayson at all. And the Dick Grayson in this, I hated. But the Dick Grayson in Grayson doesn't act like Dick Grayson. There's like little hints of it there, but other than that, he's just not Dick Grayson. And as for this comic, it's possibly the worst comic that I've read this year. Let's start with my usual sweet spot, character interactions. The majority of this issue was character interactions, so you'd think I'd be very happy about that. Normally, I'd be over the moon about that, but all the character interactions in this issue were cliched and forced and just so awkward to read. I was uncomfortable for the whole issue. The only time I wasn't uncomfortable in this issue was a flashback to where he was Nightwing and he was talking to Barbara. And even then, all the good character interactions were coming from Barbara. All of it was just so jarring and uncomfortable. And it wasn't one of those uncomfortable feelings where you can tell they're intentionally making the reader feel uncomfortable. No, it was just uncomfortable because it wasn't well written at all. Now let's talk about the art. Did anyone else notice that Dick Grayson had like 5 or 6 different faces in this comic? Let alone the fact that none of the faces were attractive, which Dick Grayson is supposed to be. Everything just seemed so rushed and messy. And I didn't enjoy issues 1 or 2 of Grayson, and if Future's End Grayson is a reflection of the quality of work we can expect from the rest of the main series of Grayson, I am going to be very disappointed. I just can't think of a positive thing to say about Future's End Grayson, so after I read it, I moved on to Future's End Swamp Thing, and that was okay, but it wasn't up to Swamp Thing's usual quality. So then I moved on to a couple of other of the Future's End titles, and they all just weren't good. And from my point of view, it just looks like there's so much editorial fuckery going on in Future's End that none of the comics have a chance to be good. Every single Future's End title that I read this week was uncreative, uninspired, and boring to read. If you're new to comics and you've been reading the weekly Future's End series, and you were thinking on getting the special edition Future's End titles, just give it a miss. Save your money. On a more positive note, let's talk about She-Hulk number 8. Now, I love this series, but I will say the art in this series is a bit hit or miss. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. The art is reminiscent of pop art, so if you like pop art, you're gonna like this series. And I will say the character interactions in especially this issue were great. They really showed how, yes, as a person you can do things to help friends, but it's even better if you can do things to help friends and gain from it at the same time. The whole issue just kept me entertained, and I cannot wait for She-Hulk number 9 to come out. The characters are written as people, and when you see their faces, it's almost like you can see them thinking in real time, which is something that's very rare in comics, and I would not have expected it to happen in a comic that's done in pop art. And something that She-Hulk does better than everything else, at least at the moment, is that it mixes the mundane with the fantastic, and it really marries the two and creates a very interesting story. I love She-Hulk. The series is very newcomer friendly, so I recommend all of you go out and read it.
It's super effective!
Okay guys, that is it for today. Sorry today's episode is kind of short. Like I said, I'm working on a bigger video, but I can't wait for all of you to see it. But for now, remember to thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more comics videos. And also don't forget to like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, support the show by checking out my Patreon so I can make bigger and better videos when we hit that A-list character goal, and subscribe to my gaming channel. My name is Faust, this has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective.